everyone. I'm Jon Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. Wife, Mother, Spy. No, it's not the name of a new streaming series on Netflix or Prime Video, although it sounds like it could be. It's the title of a self-published book by Ann E. Butler, who recently moved to Wilmington after spending 27 years as an undercover agent for the CIA, working in cities all around the world. Late-night meetings with other spies? She did it. Brushing past a contact, slipping a note in their pocket? She did it. Recruiting someone from a foreign embassy to spy on their government for the United States? She did it. All while balancing life as a wife and a mom raising 5 children. And her message to other women through this book, you can do it too. Ann Butler, welcome to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast.
Thanks, John. It's really an honor to be here.
It's really, really great to have you come in. And I really like this read. Wife, Mother, Spy. It's a fun book. You self-published this.
I did.
Did you try to have book companies interested in it?
Initially, I thought I'd go that route, but it was more important to me to get the book out there, to write it and have it on the shelf and actually have a copy, a hard copy, that I could give to my kids. So in the interest of time, and that was my purpose. It wasn't to plaster the world with the book and sell 1 million copies. Unbeknownst to me, it turned out that it was quite a popular read, or it has turned out to be a very popular read. But it was more important for me to just get the book out there and published.
As I was reading it, as I told you before we got started here, I was going, I wonder why she's writing this. I wonder if she wants to pay tribute to some of the people that you dealt with overseas for all those years. Or you're just trying to get out maybe somebody who worked for the federal government and for their country, or did you just want to do something for your kids? And then I got to the afterword, and you basically explained you have about 3 or 4 different reasons why you wanted to put all this down on paper.
So initially, I wrote it for the kids. I wanted to leave some kind of legacy for them. I wanted them to understand why we had moved around so much, why we made decisions we made, and I wanted them to understand the value, the commitment, the job I did, and how it was so important to me. So I initially started for that reason. Then I thought, there's a lot of people out there, particularly women, who are looking to have a really good, interesting, exciting career and want to have a family. And I wanted to show that it is possible to have both. So I was trying to reach a lot of people that way.
But what you did was more than walk a line or balance. It was more like a juggling act.
That's right.
For the better part of 25 years, almost 27 that you were in the CIA. As you look back at it now, I guess you're about 12 years now since you retired. As you look back at it, do you marvel at everything that happened in that time frame?
I do. Raising 5 kids that turned out to be great.
Yeah.
Traveling around the world, moving every couple of years, having a new baby every couple of years, and doing this job of recruiting spies, collecting intelligence, and all of that entailed. It was a lot, John, and I do marvel sometimes, but it was essentially fulfilling 2 really important missions, and that was the way it was. I wanted to succeed at both.
I took so many notes as I read your book, and a lot of my questions are going to come from that. Without giving too much away, you're vague in many aspects of the book. You write that you go to a country and you're in Central Europe, but you don't specify a city. You talk about an agent that you met with, but not at a specific underpass or a park. Do you have to be vague in order to get the CIA approval to use this material in the book?
Yes. Of course, the manuscript had to be approved by the agency, and it took a couple iterations for it to be cleared. But more importantly, it's not about exactly the people I met or the places I lived. It was about the job, and the book is about doing this really interesting, important job operationally and raising a family. So I think the parts about obfuscating the people's names and where I was was fine. And it doesn't really take away from the book itself and the story I told.
Right. And I think as I wondered, you talked about flying into a regional airport. So if I want in the southeastern part of the United States, so if I really wanted to guess maybe where you were, you could. But I was wondering if you had to be certain level of vague in order to get the CIA stamp of approval.
Sure. I wasn't allowed to, with a few exceptions, which are in the book, I wasn't allowed to indicate exactly where I was stationed.
You grew up Endicott, Binghamton area of New York State.
Upstate New York.
I grew up about an hour and a half south of that, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, Poconos in Pennsylvania.
Through Wilkes-Barre all the time.
Yeah. So did you set your sights on wanting to see the world? You traveled a lot with your dad as you grew up. So I think, as I read the book, that really kind of launched you on this want to see the world.
Yes. It started with my dad, but then in college, when I spent my sophomore year abroad in France and lived with a French family, totally immersed in the culture, and then did a year of graduate work in Belgium, by then I knew I wanted to live and work overseas as a career. Not easy to do because I had to look hard to find that interesting, exciting job that would in fact take me overseas. But it all turned out perfect.
Yeah, and as I saw you get started in 1986, is when your career started, but you actually applied earlier than that. So, I mean, this wasn't like you apply, you go in across town for an interview and you're hired, start in 2 weeks, was it?
Nope. It took a long time to get in the organization, and it still does. There are a lot of interviews, there are a lot of background investigations, there are a lot of checks that they do. They want to make sure they get the right people in the job. And certainly for the job I did, the operational side, I was undercover in the clandestine side of the house. It takes a certain kind of person with certain characteristics, personality characteristics, to do the job. They want to make sure they get the right people. It takes a long time.
How did you know you were the right person for that?
Well, I didn't until I was in. And that's what they saw. I mean, they interview, they have certain questions, they're looking for certain kinds of people. I didn't really know what I was getting into until I was on the inside because they're not going to describe it to you. Right. And the books you read now, it's not the real story. So once I was in, then I realized this is exactly where I needed to be.
Your first posting overseas was where?
Paris.
And what are your memories of Paris?
Paris is a beautiful city. It's a wonderful city. It's a walking city. But also, there are a lot of bad people in and around Paris, and that was what we were focused on. Our job in Paris, as anywhere, is to look for people who would be willing to tell us their secrets, plans and intentions of foreign governments that are out to get us.
You have 5 kids, Claire, Kyle, Eric, Alexis, and Katrina. Alexis and Katrina were born in Central Europe.
That's right. And one of my last tours overseas.
Right. But all of your kids were born in different parts of the world.
That's right.
So your family really saw the world and, grew up in parts of the world that many families, many children don't get that chance to see.
A lot of people dream their whole life about going to a place that we lived in for 2 or 3 years. It was an incredible experience. And not only did we live overseas for many, many years, but we traveled from those places. We traveled all over. So it was sometimes a little complicated, throwing everybody in a car or getting everybody on a plane, packing the suitcases for 5 people, but it was all well worth it. In the end, it was exactly where we should have been.
You talk at one point in time, 11 schools, 7 cities, 5 countries.
Yep.
And as you write, you thought to yourself more than once, is this the right way to raise children?
I thought that a lot, John. That was one of the reasons I wanted to write the book. I wanted the kids to see that it was in fact a little bit of a struggle at times. It wasn't always easy. And there were many moments, whether it was working or I was trying to juggle everything, that I wondered, what am I doing? This is crazy. I should be home more. I should be more settled. But in the end, it was exactly what I should have done. Our life was great because of the struggles and the sacrifices we made.
And you talk about two specific instances. You mentioned so many with all of the children. And I felt like when we got done reading the book, I knew this one was a little more rambunctious than this one. This one was a little more headstrong than this one. But you mentioned two things that, as a mom, I would think would be terribly, terribly difficult. Number one was missing an event at Claire's nursery school in Paris, which is, I think, the first time you really missed a family event. And then Kyle's first birthday, you were overseas for 4 months. So as a mom, those had to be difficult to get over.
They were. But John, in hindsight, they were just moments in time. They were just moments. And so while I was going through that, of course, I had all the doubts and concerns a mother would have. Oh, it's terrible. I'm missing this. I'm missing that. But look at the benefits of the life we lived. They were far greater than that one moment in time that I missed. So I think, again, in hindsight, you realize that it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to take my family and travel the world and experience these things and do this really committed job, even if it meant missing an event here or there.
That's funny. At one point, life became work, home to make dinner, and then maybe out for a meeting with somebody and back home at 2 o'clock in the morning. And you called that normal because for you
It was.
and your family, it was normal.
It was normal, right? I worked, it was far more than an 8-hour day. But again, it was the kind of work I did that required that.
Yeah.
And I think people who work in jobs where there is no time off, or there is no, I can't answer the phone, or I know I'm off duty, or it's past the 5 o'clock. They realize that you have to keep going. So you can't just say, no, I'm not working today. If there was something happening and you were responsible for it, you had to do it.
I found it fascinating that you mentioned, and you mentioned this even a couple of moments ago, that no matter where you were, North Africa, Central Europe, you would go on family excursions. You would go to parks. You would go to mountains, climb mountains and mountain climbing. But your head was always on a swivel.
Yep.
No matter where you went, because you were looking for, if I had to meet, it would be there. If I had to meet, it would be there.
Exactly.
So I wondered, did you really enjoy those events, or was Mom's head always on a swivel?
Yes, I did enjoy them. And that's the whole point. Both jobs were 24/7 jobs. And so that was just the way it was. I was looking for places to meet. I was looking at whether the interactions I had with people were something that I might take advantage of and maybe want to meet that person later on for another reason. And looking at where we were from the scenery standpoint, or the experience, or the cultural standpoint, doing both things at once. It was great. It made life so, so rich.
After 9/11, you mentioned that things changed. How did they change for you overseas many times?
Things, of course, changed for everybody.
Right.
From a work standpoint, we were focused exclusively on counterterrorism. So the work did not diminish, and it was still a 24/7 job, but we were focused exclusively on counterterrorism. So that was how it changed at work. At home, it was more being aware, even further being aware of our surroundings as a family. We had to, when we were overseas, keep a low profile as Americans, unfortunately. Whereas back in the U.S., everybody was flying flags and you'd see people banding together. But overseas, we had to keep a lower profile, and that was a little bit difficult.
In 2008, you said you were posted in Europe. You were second in command of a large office. You drove an armored SUV, and you carried a Glock. And at that point, if I understood the writing correctly, your work helped to get somebody from Al-Qaeda taken into custody. Those had to be very anxious times.
Of course.
It's not every day that somebody says you're going to drive an armored SUV to work every day. Were you worried about your safety, or could you not worry about your safety?
So I was not worried about my safety because we were trained very, very, very well. We were trained how to protect ourselves. We were trained how to protect the people that worked for us. We were trained how to protect our families. And the SUV, the armored vehicle, was in fact part of that. And carrying the Glock was in fact part of that. So I felt very comfortable knowing that I was well protected and knew how to take care of myself.
But it's, and I guess I chuckle because it's reality to you, but to me it would be like so disarming for somebody who I guess is not used to it, but you were used to it, so it was just another part of the job.
It was another part of the job. It was a way that, in fact, to ensure that we were protected. And the Glock, again, we qualified and requalified and requalified. We went out every month to the range to make sure that we felt comfortable using a Glock. So in a way, it was just something, another mechanism that we were taught and that we protected ourselves with.
You list many of your agents, and several of them that the stories I think are fascinating. A Russian contacted a think tank. Mm-hmm. A man who worked for the state-run phone company, an economist at a bank in Central Europe. I'm not sure how you would pronounce it, WEI, mm-hmm. somebody from one of the mm-hmm. Chinese embassies, mm-hmm. I believe, at that time. And Toflik, the Northern Africa agent. These are people, if I'm understanding, they were just working their lives. You cultivated them, correct?
Correct. That's what we do. That's what case officers do.
And how does that process work? You get to know them,
sure.
and then you just find out if they can help you?
There's a whole thing we call the recruitment cycle, John. It's first you have to find somebody. You have to find the person that has access to intelligence. And you have to find the person that not only has access to intelligence of interest, but has the right personality characteristics to spy for us. So it might be somebody who is looking to cross that line. But if they don't have access, then we're not even interested. So first we find that individual. Once we do that, then we assess, are they the right person? Do they tell the truth? Are they maybe courageous enough to do what we're asking them to do? Are they able to think on their feet? Once we do all this assessment, determine, yes, they're the right person, then we're going to ask them to actually spy for us. Mm-hmm. Then the whole handling effort starts. We are essentially teaching them how to be a spy. We, even prior to that, though, we're developing a long relationship with them. It might be over dinner. It might be over a meal at each other's house. We really get to know them. Once we get to know them enough and we trust them and we think that they're going to tell us the truth, then we might recruit them. And then the handling begins. That's when we teach them how to become a spy. It's a long process.
Yeah, it doesn't happen you don't go to boot camp for a week, right?
No. It's long, and the whole point is to get to know them and what they're thinking, how they're thinking. What will they essentially tell us the truth? And is it somebody that we can trust to do what we want?
I'm going to ask you to kind of go over one story. It's the license plate switch mm-hmm. story, and I think Toflik was the contact at that mm-hmm. point in time. If you'll explain what you had to do to get to him that night, and number two, is that a normal progression of events on a night when you might meet somebody?
So this was an agent that we had been meeting, or I had been meeting for a couple of years, mm-hmm. and in the city where I was based, Tawfiq would come in periodically for his own business reasons, and then during those meetings, when he had his own agenda, he would leave at a certain point to come meet me. Well, we wanted to make sure that when he was leaving his own business meetings or his own hotel, he would then take a very circuitous route to a point that we had already determined would be a good spot for me to pick him up. It was, of course, at night when we had the cover of darkness on our side. Mm-hmm. The problem was that I was driving a diplomatic vehicle. So if in the event he and I were in the same vehicle and it was a diplomatic vehicle, it could really cause a lot of problems for him if somebody cited that.
Sure.
So I would go on my way from point A to point B to point C, a route that I had already determined was a good way to determine if I was going to be followed or not. Mm-hmm. I then pulled off in a area that was somewhat under the cover of trees, away from the main road, and I changed my license plates from a diplomatic plate to a local plate.
Front and back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Then got back in the car, went a very short distance where I picked up Tawfiq. Now we're in a car that's not plated diplomatically. So if by some chance somebody happened to see the car, it would be nothing unusual. We had our meeting. We moved a little further, went to another spot where we pulled off, and we had a very brief meeting, probably no more than 10 or 12 minutes. And then once he left the car, I went back to another spot that I had already cased out, changed the license plates back to diplomatic plates, and continued on my way.
Yeah.
What I want to emphasize, though, John, all this was it was prepared in advance. Every single second, where I was going to be and what I was going to do every minute.
Could you do those same things in 2025 because of Ring doorbells, because of security cameras everywhere? You're in late 80s, 90s, early 2000s. There were security cameras and traffic cameras, but certainly not to the extent there are right now.
Right. It would be more difficult. Absolutely. There are ways to do it. And the CIA is very good at doing that. It would be more difficult, but again, you have to case to make sure the cameras aren't watching those spots. And if they are, then you go to a spot where there are no cameras.
Many thriller novels and shows feature secret agents who get rid of bad guys using violence. Is that the norm, or is what you do and the way you gathered evidence and intelligence the norm?
What I did was the norm, and it continues that way, John. We aren't one aspect of being a case officer. You're under the radar. You're not out killing people. You're not out your name is not up in lights. You are under the radar, doing things quietly and effectively and efficiently, and that's why we're good at what we do.
What's the most scared you've ever been? I didn't get that from the book. There were a couple of times when you were concerned that maybe your cover ID may not fly.
Right.
But I didn't get any experience of you being really scared for your own life.
John, it's because there was no time that I was really, really scared. I felt confident in what I had been trained to do and how I was able to handle myself. When the hair stood up on the back of my neck was when I was going around a corner to meet an agent, and I held my breath. Would that agent be there? Would the agent be where he or she said they would be, or we had agreed upon at the exact time and the exact place? I was always nervous about that, and it always happened perfectly. They were where they were supposed to be, and so was I. But that was when I was most nervous. All the rest of the time, I knew how to protect myself. I felt confident in what I had been trained to do.
You said at times, a lot toward the end of your career, you worked alongside FBI employees, agents, assistant directors, even if I'm understanding correctly. Do those agencies not like each other? You talked often about working alongside people, and you had a good relationship with people. But everybody always says FBI and CIA don't get along. Do they?
They do. John, again, it comes down to personalities, right? I worked with some great FBI agents. I worked with some really great CIA folks, and the opposite as well. So I would say the agencies now, especially after 9/11, across the board, government agencies do work well together for the greater good.
You wrote that your husband, Joe, came to understand your job. That's the phrase you used. Did he know what not to ask?
Yes.
Did he learn what not to ask?
He knew who I worked for. He knew what I was trying to do, collect intelligence to protect the country. He knew not to ask who I was meeting with, where I was, when I would be home, what my plan was for that evening. He understood. He was extremely supportive. He knew how important my job was. And
how long did it take him to be comfortable with what you were doing? You knew him before you started. You had dated a little bit after college.
Right.
So it's not like you were an agent and met him then. Right. So he was with you and along your side as you got into this whole thing.
He was. And it was from the very beginning. He was supportive from the very beginning. I think because he understood how important our work was or is, and he was also a great dad and knew how important that was to me to be have a good home life and a good personal life. So he was the right man for both.
What's he like? I wish he was here. I wish I could ask him a couple of questions. But what does he do? What does he like to do? I guess he's retired now as well,
He's
right?
retired. He was a network engineer. So interestingly enough, he was not going to be a house husband. He had a career, and he ensured that he found great jobs wherever we went around the world. He hustled. He found fascinating jobs in various corporations or international agencies. And he had a very fulfilling career, though, in fact, he had to quit his job every few years as we moved to another location. But he was willing to do it. But he had such a good work record and such a great personality that he was able to find the next job in short order.
I tell people that I would not be nearly as successful at what I do had I not married a saint. Sheila and I are 40 years married together. You talk about him being the right person for you. She was the right person for me, and she knew what I had to do in order to be successful at what I do. Would somebody else have understood the way Joe did?
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. I am glad I never had to find out. Joe was the right person. And I think I need to be very grateful for that.
What was the decision-making process like to finally tell Claire what you did for a living? You told your oldest daughter first. Take me through the decision-making process when you decided.
So I never told Claire, actually, John. She found out through a friend of hers at the time. We were overseas. I think she was maybe in middle school. And her friend was the daughter of my boss. So one day, her friend saw a piece of artwork on the wall in our house that happened to be the same similar piece of artwork that she had in her house, and said, "Oh, my dad, your mom works for my dad, and they both work for the CIA." That's how Claire found out. The other kids, she thankfully never told her siblings. The other 4 kids found out the night before my retirement ceremony when I told them over dinner, because I wanted them to come to headquarters with me the next day for the retirement party.
And how did that go over around the dinner table?
They were surprised. I mean, they knew that I worked for the government, obviously. They were surprised, probably a little, maybe a little, surprised I hadn't told them earlier that Claire knew ahead of them. But they were very proud of me in the end.
Well, I would imagine so. Somebody who worked for 27 years at that kind of a job, I would imagine. It would be tough if I was a child or somebody in the teens or early 20s to not say, "What'd you do, Mom? Were you not there while I did?" Were there questions that followed?
No, there weren't. They knew my work as a diplomat, took me out in the evenings for receptions, things like that. And they never really questioned it. I was going to work, and that was what they knew. That was the life that they knew from the very, very beginning.
If you don't mind sharing, was there one mission, and you outlined many, is there one mission that was particularly satisfying to you? It's like somebody asking me, what's my favorite story that I've ever done? I know it's an unfair question, but is there one that just sticks out that turned out to be more important than maybe you thought at the beginning as far as intelligence?
That is a tough question because there were a lot. I did some really fascinating work, met some fascinating people. The one that comes to mind, is it the most important? I'm not sure, but I was meeting someone from one of our hard target countries and met with this person and this story is in the book, met with this person over 2 or 3, close to 4 years in various places. And what was so great about this agent was she was giving us great information about her country, but she was also a mom. And so one of the ways I got close to her initially was because we were both moms, and she was devoted to her daughter, and who was not living with her and was not allowed to live with her in the country she was. And at one point she came to visit, and I was thrilled because I was able to show her how much I wanted to be her friend by helping her show her daughter the country. So the 4 of us, the 3 of us, her daughter, the agent, and myself went on excursions day after day for over a week. And I really cemented our relationship, which in fact led her to trust me and ultimately be willing to be recruited.
It's fascinating to me, though, that you really built relationships, and you have some of the people in your lives were from that work that you're still friends with and still communicate with today, correct?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the work we did was so unusual and so unique. But as far as the locals that we became friends with, I mean, that was being living overseas and living in these neighborhoods and living among the local population and having kids who had friends throughout just made our lives, again, so much more rich and fun and exciting.
But it wasn't all, candy canes and lollipops either. You got sick, you got a diagnosis, Joe got sick.
Sure.
The kids have kids, things happen to them, broken bones here and there. So, I think the Hollywood side of this and the missions is one thing, but you also had to deal with raising 4 human beings.
Five.
I'm sorry, 5 human beings. And a dog at one point.
Yeah.
And being a mom and being a wife. So, again, I used the term juggling before. I think from my vantage point, that raises you higher in the respect because you were able to do that. Your kids are successful. You had a great marriage with Joe. I think sometimes it may take a back seat, but I think it should be up front.
All those things you mentioned, though, John, are things that everybody deals with. Illnesses and tragedies and difficulties and kids wanting this or needing that. So, yes, it is difficult to do that when you have another really intense job. But that's also what I want to say, that the CIA work wasn't just a Hollywood version. It was the real work, and then you had this real parent life as well.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things you say in the afterword here is that you also want to encourage women that if they want to do something and still be a wife and a mom, you can do it.
You can do
Look
it.
at what I did.
That's right. It does. It's important to have somebody supportive as a spouse or partner. You need that. You absolutely need that. But you can do it all. I'm saying that you may not, you're going to sacrifice some things. Maybe you don't have as many friends and go out on your own as much as you would have liked, but you've got other opportunities. And you need to take advantage of these opportunities if they're in front of you, because it makes life great.
What do you do now? You've been retired since 2013. You wrote a book. What do you do now? You're in Wilmington, near the coast?
For about 10 years, I worked as a contractor back to the CIA, doing some training and odds and ends, operational support. Now I talk about my book, and I relax a little bit, and I enjoy my kids. And as the adults, they are.
And 2 of your kids are here in Wilmington?
2 of my kids are here in Wilmington. I have one out on the West Coast in San Diego, one still up in Northern Virginia, and one who is just finishing her training as a Marine. She's a Marine officer.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. So they're all over.
That's awesome. What is the most realistic TV series or movie that plays what you did for a living?
The one that I would probably say, there's a lot of shows out there, but The Americans was quite, it was focused, it was about the Russian sleeper agents. So it wasn't about Americans, actually. It was about the Russians. But because I think it was based in the 80s, and that was the time that I worked, I would say a lot of that is quite accurate.
Is there a production or is there something that shows some of the things you did? You talk at times about the brush when you would...
The brush pass.
The brush pass. You talk about sitting at a park bench and not like you're talking to each other. Is there a show that shows that side of things as well?
Again, you'd see that in The Americans. But a lot of that is still... The shows coming out now, John, are very, shoot 'em up and kind of glitzy. But the real clandestine work where you're trying to elicit information from people or you're trying to watch somebody from afar, will always go on. That's the real work.
How many men and women are doing what you did? Hundreds, thousands around the world?
The exact number, of course, we don't disclose.
Right, obviously.
around the world in all the different countries.
Yeah.
There's a lot. But those that are doing the clandestine work in the intelligence agencies around the world, it's a pretty small number. And again, it's because it takes a certain kind of person to do that work.
Can you recognize someone that you think might do it?
I can. We all can. We've been doing it for a while. So people who are in the clandestine world, we can pick out other officers.
Can you put it away? Or because it was so ingrained in you that you still will, if you go into a park, I could meet there.
Always.
That guy right there,
Always.
is it always there?
It's always there. And you're also always watching your back, which is
Still?
important. Sure, keep your head on a swivel. That's what Joe tells my kids all the time. Keep your head on a swivel. You always need to be aware of your surroundings, and that goes for anybody. You have to be able to pivot if necessary at the last minute. If something goes awry, something doesn't go according to plan, it's a good, it's a great ability to be able to be flexible, adjust when needed.
What are you going to do next? You're going to write a thriller novel? Do you have something in mind? What's next for Ann Butler?
I don't know. We'll see. That was I wanted to get that story on paper, and we'll see what happens next.
You have a smile about
That's
you.
Right. That's right.
that I can only imagine. But I would think, though, that telling moms and telling women that they can do anything, which is really, I think, one of the themes of this book. If they want to try something, they could really go out and try it.
It takes perseverance. It takes a little bit of sacrifice, but they need to try because it'll be worth it in the end.
It is Wife, Mother, Spy, An Extraordinary Life Filled with Ordinary Days. Ann E. Butler is the author. She's now retired, and she is living in Wilmington. I really have enjoyed this conversation, and thank you. I really enjoyed the book, and I appreciate you joining me on a one-on-one with Jon Evans podcast.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it.
A big thank you to Ann E. Butler for taking time from her busy schedule, coming into our studio and joining me for this week's podcast interview. Once again, her book is Wife, Mother, Spy. It's a fun read. I highly recommend it. You can follow Ann on social media. She's on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And you can get all of her updates on her website, annebutler.com. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow or subscribe to the One-on-One with Jon Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you'd like to see a video version of my interview with Ann E. Butler, just head over to my YouTube channel. It's Jon Evans TV. I'm Jon Evans. We appreciate you joining us for this episode of One-on-One.